You'll always learn that leadership is really a lot more affiliative than you realize. Like you really are tapping into what do your people need, not what do I need them to do. Again, it's a different mindset. What do my people need to be great? Not just what do I need them to do.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host, Tracy Hayes. Are you ready for an inspiring and empowering experience? Today's Real Estate Excellence Podcast is bringing you the one and only Vera Jones, an accomplished speaker and coach with an impressive background as a keynote speaker for the upcoming Jacksonville Mortgage Bankers Association meeting on the 19th. You won't want to miss out on her valuable insight. Vera is a Syracuse University graduate with a degree in broadcast journalism, which she has expertly utilized throughout her career as a women's basketball analyst for major networks like ESPN, Madison Square Garden, and the Big Ten Network. But that's not all. 15 years ago, she founded Vera's Voice Works, where she now provides motivational speaking, coaching services in a wide range of organizations, including corporations, government, and community groups, specializing in empathic communication and building professional speaking confidence and credibility. Vera will leave you motivated and equipped to take your career to the next level. Let's welcome the coach, Vera Jones, to the show. That was written by AI.
I'll take the coach. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you on and obviously get to meet yourself. And I was obviously, like anyone I have on the show, I go in and I dig into your background, and we're about the same age, and you've done some, at least on paper, it looks like some great things. Hopefully you'll share some of those and how it's, turned into your business, and speaking and motivating. Obviously I would assume a lot of that, what you speak about is coming from your years of experience, obviously playing basketball at a high level. And then obviously, when you're out there, daily as an analyst and interviewing the athletes and talking type things, these are people that are, I go back to motivation, what drives someone to get to a certain level. Everyone likes to think it's just, they're just gifted and talented. Well, some of them are, but most of them put in some serious hard work, and they had to be motivated to do that. And how does that carry over to business?
Well, I mean, it's long been said, I was not the creative genius that said it, but I agree with it that sport is a microcosm of life. And there are so many parallels that I've been able to pull out for my particular sport, basketball. Some of the more simplistic ones are just simple things that we need to do in our life to rebound, after we miss the shot, so to speak. So I have found that my experience with sports and how I've translated that into my business and professional life has just been invaluable. It's just been, and I share those same things as a motivator because not everybody played sports, right? So that mindset, though, the winner's mentality that you develop, the discipline, the ability to lead and strategize, all of those things that come from coaching translate into our business world as well. And so, it has served me very, very well to have been in sports and to be a sports broadcaster.
Right. Now, I'm actually going to jump my first question, go to the second one, because you were talking about, because you wrote a book, and I love the title. You've actually written several books, according to the video. You didn't mention them all. Mm-hmm. At least I didn't see them all on LinkedIn, but the one, obviously the main one, Play Through the Foul. I've been trying to kind of coach my son on that one.
And isn't that like
Playing Through the Foul? But tell us a little bit about the book and the background of it. And I actually asked ChatGPT to summarize it for me, but it couldn't. I don't know if the title wasn't clicking in there. But give us a little summarization and of what someone would get through that book.
Yeah, that whole concept came to me because people would always ask, as whenever I'd be on stages or almost anywhere, is what's the greatest thing that you learn from sport? And you sit there and go, but it came to me pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. It really was how to play through the foul. Like, no matter how good a shooter you are, if you're in sports, if you're in baseball, how well you hit the ball, if you pitch. At the end of the day, it's not when you're making the shot. It's not when things are going great. Right. It's how well you play when they're not. when you get that foul, and whatever the fouls are, I see life as a contact sport. There are going to be fouls. And again, that's part of the winner's mentality that I talk about, is just, if you go into the sport knowing, and every athlete does, I might strike out. I might not win this race. I might come in second place. You don't focus on that, but you realize it happens, so that when it does happen, you don't have to act. It doesn't have to be a major drama in your life, right? Obviously, the flagrant fouls, that's something different. But the ones we happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest way that this translates in business, Tracy, is the fouls that we receive virtually every day is in our relationships, our interactions with others. And that's why I have a background in conflict resolution as well. That same mindset took me there.
Oh, I love that. I love that part. Because I mean, obviously, anyone's going to be at the event. Hopefully some realtors show up, but obviously loan officers. But we're in the same world as far as relationships. And I like the way you kind of summarize that, the fouls we make between each other professionally, whether, it's what we said or what we didn't show up, showed up, whatever, from that standpoint. When you were talking there, you made me think of a couple, and I know there's many more out there, but they talk about, I think it was Reggie Jackson, how many home runs he hit, but he actually was struck out more than anyone else.
Sure.
Michael Jordan talks about, how many points he scored, but it's how many shots he actually missed. He took the shots.
Right. Yeah.
Come down. So to kind of bring it, so early in there, hopefully we still have some people who are listening live. We have video. Some people click in and click out, but I know that was very important. But I want to get across the point. I know you're probably thinking about, or probably already have something prepared that you work on as a keynote speaker. But on the 19th, what should the audience really look to walk away with?
What's interesting is what I'd like to bring to the stage and to audiences is a little of my experience. And you'll be pleased to know, for a brief moment in my long career in athletics, I too was a mortgage banker. So there is some relatability there. And I want to thank and give a huge shout out to Tom Reber, because he gave me that big first break at Wells Fargo years ago. But so I can relate. And I want to be able to share some parallels there too. The most recent book I wrote was called Now I See. And kind of this presentation is based on that. So the experience I'm bringing is not just from sport and not necessarily just from mortgage banking. It's probably the biggest lessons that I've ever learned in my life. My son at the age of 12 was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And what it required to find the faith, the focus, and the fortitude to overcome that myself, but then to also help him do the same, has been the greatest lessons I have ever learned, even above and beyond that which I have learned in participating in sports. So I like to share that message. It is my most sought after message. There's actually a viral video that went viral to over 47 million people.
Oh.
And so some people have probably already heard the message, but that doesn't stop me from sharing it again. Ask my son, I repeat myself all the time. So part of being a speaker, we repeat the same things.
Right.
But the message I hope people will also find to be relatively invaluable, especially with the changes, holy smokes, that goes on in the mortgage industry and the real estate industry day in and day out.
Kind of feeling how you would, not knowing the exact answer to that question, but obviously I really like to keep things simple. I know putting on events and getting people attracted there. That's why I wanted to ask that first question, what are they going to leave with? And the important thing, and we like to think, motivation, that's just for, Dwayne Johnson getting up so he can pump himself up and go. But it goes to every single person, as far as I know. You might have to be motivated to get up and, take care of your newborn child or a child who's sick. That takes motivation. You got what's it going to get to do that? And how, important is it? And I know you're going to do this during the speech. So I don't want to steal any of the thunder from that when you actually spot. But how important is it in your, vast experience? You've been around a lot of amazing people, athletes and otherwise. How important is, some of the things that you're going to be talking about, even for just the common day loan officer that you're going to relate for, how important is some of these little tips and tricks or, things that you're going to hopefully motivate them with?
I think they're very important. And if I could steal one, I'm trying also not to give it away. It's kind of like, if I give it away here, why come? Right. So, and I want you to come because I'd love to meet people face to face. But in this stage of where we are and in what you do in the real estate industry, in mortgages, is and a lot of speakers talk about that, but really just what is mindset, right? Positioning yourself so that you're thinking about the right things. We overlook everything in our society is do. And we don't start thinking about the importance of programming our mindset first until, unfortunately, and we're seeing a lot more of this now, we experience the mental unwellness that leaves us in a position that we can't do. So I think the greatest takeaway, or I hope one of the greatest takeaways that I can do, is help you really get your arms around what mindset is about. Yeah, and the principles and strategies that I present are all about really formulating that mindset.
Yeah. The top real estate agents I have on, I mean, that's a common word that they use that's successful. Then that's what they try to do. Especially if they're team leaders, they're trying to teach, especially as the market changes, we get discouraged or that we get fouled, right? And how, what's your mindset and coming out of that? Use that terminology. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go down through the next series of questions and really so everyone hopefully can have a little just background on you, where you're coming from. I know, obviously, if Tom introduced you, he's going to spit off a lot of different things, but I want to dig a little behind some of those things and what they actually mean to you. And when they hear you speak on the 19th, they go, oh, yes, I, know a little bit more about her and I see where that's coming from. Okay. Tell us, so you grew up in Maryland. If I saw you went to high school in Maryland.
Yes.
Pretty much grew up there, born and raised?
Yep. Prince George's County, Maryland, right outside of the nation's capital. Yes, sir.
And then, so what took you up to Syracuse?
A basketball. My very first love was a little orange basketball. And I started playing at the age of 5, had a bunch of older brothers, one older brother, a bunch of older male cousins. So I came up behind them, right? Just playing sports all the time.
What an older brother can do.
Yeah. He gets credit for some of the success, I guess. And just fell in love with the game of basketball. I played a lot of sports. I played softball. I ran track. I was a volleyball player. So I just played sports. I loved it. But basketball was the big passion. And that took me on a full scholarship to Syracuse University. I chose Syracuse University because the one other skill that I had, there was only one other than being a basketball player, was running my mouth. I came out of the womb talking. So I knew I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And I remember in my junior year of high school looking up, okay, if I want to broadcast, where should I go? Syracuse University was it. And so the stars aligned and I was able to go to the school that I most wanted to on a basketball scholarship. Awesome. And went on and spent 30 years as a sports broadcaster. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I remember, the 80s were, I mean, the men, you guys, I know, I saw the video, you won a Big Ten championship, but the men's basketball team was very good during the 80s too. So Syracuse was a spot there for basketball.
I heard you say the 80s and I went, holy smokes, is that me? Are we doing this? We're really talking about the 80s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, we're about the same age. And again, just to mention everyone, you were a letter winner with distinction, a high honor. You're in the Syracuse Hall of Fame there. Alumni.
Yes. Big honor.
And then I was looking at your resume on LinkedIn. In 97, you get the start with ESPN. It didn't tell me much between the time you kind of left Syracuse and ESPN. So if you want to make that connection, and then, I mean, what got you the connection and got you in with all the way to ESPN?
Wow. You were really, really making me think. Didn't we just establish that I'm old?
Well, it's going to lead you to a bigger question I got a little later. That's why I'm digging on this one.
Okay. You're making me nervous. I left Syracuse. My very first job, and all of this comes into play, even in the training and coaching that I do now. My very first job was corporate. I was working with Procter & Gamble in sales. And my big product was Folgers coffee, which I still drink today. There's my little self plug for Procter & Gamble. Yep, that was my big job out of college. So I learned the world of corporate very early, very early, and was on a fast track to management and all of that. Went back and got a master's degree in communications at Syracuse University, and still had my heart and eyes set on I'm going to make it in this very male dominated sports world. I was a radio DJ for many years. And by being a radio DJ, that's kind of how I worked. And I was also a country radio DJ. Yes, to look at me, you wouldn't think of it, but I am. So I did a lot of things. I tried a lot of things, and that's part of what I talk about too, right? So yeah, that's pretty much how I made it. I ended up doing radio, and then radio, one day I got the big break. I got the call from ESPN. I was doing a little bit of sports broadcasting on the side for much smaller networks. Right. And just kept honing my craft until one day I was quote unquote good enough.
Well, so what the main point I wanted to lead to and kind of set everybody up with is, whether you're here in Jacksonville, greater Jacksonville, networking as a real estate agent or mortgage loan officer, in that world that you're, and you mentioned a male dominated world. And as women's sports it's much different now than it was in the late 90s, as far as having, female commentators and that kind of thing.
Right.
And, the networking that you had to do, it's definitely a lot of probably 55% versus 45% what you knew.
Sure.
My assumption would be at that time, because it is, there's a lot of people that would love to be on ESPN and so forth. So,
right.
They put out a job application for, we need a female analyst. I'm sure they, had a pile of them. But what were some of the things that you felt you were doing, whether, through your years at Syracuse or in the corporate world, and you're talking about the radio and so forth, that kind of networked you to know that job was available at ESPN?
Yeah. When you talk about who I mean, my story is really brief when it comes to it. Number one, it was my coach. The coach that I swore did not like me when I played in college, right, was the main one sticking her neck out for me when I got through. She saw something in me as a broadcaster. Like I said, I'd always been running my mouth. And she was the one that sent my tape. We had tapes back then. My tape, reel-to-reel, right, tape into ESPN. And got them to take a look at me, a second look, because I had to send it myself previously. So that connection actually was huge for me. And then the second was this, along the lines of what you're talking about, networking. There's a woman by the name of Robin Roberts. You probably know her from Good Morning America. Yeah. She was the very first broadcaster, African-American broadcaster woman at ESPN. I happened to be covering a game on radio, I believe it was, at the same time she was at a game live. And I did the groupie thing. I wrote a thank you letter for her being a representation of women of color in sports, and just that I was a young admirer, up and coming, and just a thank you letter. Right. Ran it across the court, all nervous, sweat coming down, like, oh, take here. Like she was like God to me, right? And I'm like, oh man, so I give it to her, and she always remembered me. She began to watch some of my stuff, and when it came time for a recommendation of who are you thinking would make a great help alongside of you, she said, let's give Vera Jones an audition.
Awesome.
And again, it was who I knew. If I had never taken, stepped out of my comfort zone and gone over there and say, here, just want to say thank you, she wouldn't have known who Vera Jones was. So that was a big break for me.
Well, that certainly is something we talk about. I talk about with the agents on the podcast regularly, is a lot of these successful people really do want to help. Now,
sure,
they want you to follow through, but just to approach them is a great admiration, flattery, to come up and like you said, you worshiped her, but you just said you just enjoyed following her. I'm sure you didn't say you worshiped her to her face.
Yeah, no.
But it's flattering to do, and I think a lot of young people. I'm down at the Jaguars practice at least one day a week. Tomorrow's my day. I go down as I referee, I officiate the practice, and there's a lot of obviously those guys are about 25 years old. Trevor's only 23, and I'm twice their age, and they're very humble. They don't, to have someone actually approach them and say, man, what a great play. I was watching you the whole game. For someone to take that into perspective that, oh my goodness, you actually are watching me, even though we see him on TV, there was a superstar, but you actually approached him and actually said something that, hey man, I've been admiring you. That really just went a long way.
And the flip side of that is I cannot tell you how many in my broadcasting days, you pay it forward, how many young people I've been able to take under my wing, and help show them the ropes. Sometimes it's just a phone call. Sometimes it was bringing them to studio, but just taking the time out to talk with young people about what they wanted to do. So on the flip side of that, I can say that, yes, people have come up to me as well and said, I really want to do what you do, or I enjoy what you do. And it's very humbling, flattering as well, but it's definitely very humbling to know that you impact a person that way.
Yeah. 100%. You mentioned your coach you thought didn't like you. I kind of had a coach like that one time, but there's one person that I can admire and tell me it's changed, a lot of aspects of my life. He thought I should go into coaching. My problem is I still coach like the 1970s and 80s. I'm more of a Bobby Knight guy.
Do as I say.
You need some of my coaching with the young people. But in talking about the corporate speaking that you're doing, that I would imagine, you grew up in a very similar, same time period I did, and at that time, I always use the expression, if they're not in your face, it's because they don't care for you. Versus today, if someone's in your face, it's because they're trying to demean you and put you down. And it's a totally, gone 180 degrees on that. And my question is, when you're out there speaking to some of these corporations, which I imagine we're going to have some leaders at the event, how do you, how have you seen the difference? What are some of the things that you're, recommending them to kind of deal with the times, I guess?
It's very interesting you asked this because this wasn't even planned. So I am in the midst right now, if I have bags under my eyes at all, I'm in the midst of writing my first leadership book, which is called Leadership Success, not first pure leadership book, and basically deals with 6 principles of empathic leadership. Because what you're talking about today's Gen Z and millennial, leading that group of people, which is kind of where we are right now, it's so very, very important that we understand the difference of that style of leadership you were talking about versus a more empathic or affiliative style that is needed and demanded today. So my recommendation would be to buy my book when it comes out. That would be my recommendation.
There'll be all the answers right there.
Buy the book. But it is about understanding, recognizing that you have to stay with the times. Generations do bring different reflections and perceptions of how they want to be led. And we're not always groomed to that because we always lead the way we were led, the way we were brought up. And there's you can just look at the styles of clothes and hairstyles to know we're not there anymore. We're not. So if the styles and hairstyles change, our leadership has to as well. Our values don't have to, but the way we lead, particularly the way we communicate, absolutely does.
Yeah. That actually answered question number 10.
I'm glad I could help you.
I love a good interview. It just flows. It just flows like a conversation. I truly do. Hey folks, this episode was produced by Streamline Media, the #1 media company for helping brands generate content that converts. I knew I wanted to start a podcast to reach more people and bring value to the world, but I did not have the time or the knowledge. Streamline Media became my secret weapon to building my show. They handle all my back-end work, production, and strategies to keep my show going strong. If you're in the real estate business and looking to make content that generates more leads and brings in more revenue, check out the Streamline Media link in the show notes and discover how partnering up can supercharge your path to real estate excellence. And you're still doing the analyst work, according to your You still?
No, I actually recently retired from that. I do a little bit of here and there, but network broadcasting, I'm done with that. I 100% have dived into Vera's Voice Works and all of the training and leadership development that I do.
Okay. Obviously you had the overlap. You had this vision of your speaking, coaching business, Vera's Voice, and because you started in 2007, and it's obviously ramped up to now. This is your full-time gig. You're doing this as your career now, dropping the sports. So how did you migrate? When did you have that vision of getting into the professional speaking, and that this is where you saw what's the word I want to use? This is where your passion was.
Yes. Another great story. I'm loaded with stories if you haven't figured this out yet.
You got to be, right?
But this one's very, very dear to my heart because the shortest version I have of this story is I was coaching at Indiana University. I was an assistant coach. I did the coaching thing for a little while, collegiate coaching, and I was a Hoosier at IU, and a single mom. Son was 9 at the time, and my mom and dad would come up from Jacksonville, Florida, and they would babysit, obviously, during March Madness and different times when we would have to travel, and I would have to be away. And my mom sits down at the table one day and she says, "You know what I think you should do?" And I thought I was going to get this lecture about find some rich husband and settle down, right? I was like, oh, here we go again. And it wasn't that lecture. Yeah. Why can't I get one of those rich athletes and settle down? And it wasn't that lecture at all. She says, "You know what I think you should do? You need to finish writing that book you've been working on. Get yourself on the speaker circuit so you can inspire people, and then get yourself on Oprah." Because my mama loved Oprah, but that's a whole different story. And it was so left field for me, Tracy. I was like, what? And I just kind of blew it off and laughed it off. And the short of the story is we went away to play basketball for 5 days. And when we returned, my mom and dad went back to Jacksonville, Florida, and my mom died suddenly of a heart attack soon after. Oh. And it was the saddest time of my life, the most empty, loss, flagrant foul of my life at that time. And then I picked up everything, moved back home to take care of my father, heard my mother's voice while I was crying one day say, "You know what I think you should do? Finish writing that book, get yourself on the speaker circuit, and get yourself on Oprah." Yeah. So I did what my mama said. So that's my answer. And like, well, how did you get into it? I was like, I listened to my mom. It's just that simple. Everybody should do that. Listen to your mom.
I go on and I watch some of the TEDx stuff and these people, going on and doing their first, kind of keynote, that's kind of a step a lot of people are taking. I don't know if you know Heather Monahan. She's written a couple of books. She's a keynote speaker, and I read her book and listened to a few of her podcasts and so forth. And she talks, getting into the speaker circuit. And not to directly relate, because I think what I want to relate what you're doing to a lot, whether it's a real estate agent or a loan officer maybe listening, is a lot of them have a lot of, just lack of better words, fear, not confident in doing a video. That's a big thing now in our thing. Video is what's selling. Yes. Social media and just getting out there and putting yourself out there. What were some of? Everyone's nervous. You probably still get butterflies before you go on the stage, right? I mean,
everyone's wow.
What were some of the things that you had to work through in that early part of your speaking career? Even though you've been speaking on a microphone like we are now, doing the sports, but now to stand up in front of somebody or in front of obviously a crowd and on a stage where you're totally exposed. You're not hiding behind a desk and the camera's on the players and you're just talking, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest, so you're throwing me some great bones here. Thank you very much. So one of the things I did in 2020 is I launched off and I started a Perseverance Speakers Academy. So I coach speakers, whether you want to be a big time speaker on stages, or like you said, I just need to make a real estate video or start becoming an influencer on social media, whatever it is. But I work with people to speak, and I'm going to give away one of my best hacks. Okay. And the number one thing is you've got to get out of the feeling of being approved, right? And so again, mindset is everything. Yep. One of my favorite things to do is people stand up there and their first thoughts, or what causes us the fear, is the fear of judgment. Are they going to like me? Do they think I'm credible? So you have to remove yourself from that place of the focus is on me. and take your mind to the focus is on what I bring. It's not me, it's what I'm giving. So I always say, and I'll do little exercises, one of which is if I were to say to you right now, if you were nervous, doesn't look like you're nervous, but if you were, I would go, hey, tell me about your favorite movie. You seen a good movie lately? What's your favorite movie of all time? Immediately, your brain would shift to a place of remembering something that brought you joy or excitement or passion of, oh my God, this movie was so good. And it takes it off of you. And I say, tell me about it. So I always coach people to think about when you get on the camera, it's not about, it is about you, but it's not about you. It's about what you bring. So bring them your favorite movie, whatever you're telling, tell them like it's, you have to go see this movie. You have to go see this house. You have to take advantage of this new low interest rate. Oh my gosh, it's great stuff, right? And it totally takes the fear off of you and focuses it on what you bring to your audience.
That is awesome. That's going to be a great reel. I'm going to cut that from here. You're going to see that on the reels here. But that's exact. That message is what I try to express. And I've gone through that entire process with the podcast. Is now your number 117th episode. I started in June of 21. And you can go back, whether it's my video, I've learned how to do that better. Now I can cut better reels. I know when I listen, because I listen to myself when it comes out on Apple Podcast, I'm listening to myself. And obviously I'm picking up stuff that I'm saying or doing that most people they're not hearing that. And you have to come to the realization is you are your biggest critic and you have to stop being that way. You're going to get better, but it's like basketball. You ain't going to be a great shooter unless you go out and miss a lot of shots, right? You got to start shooting.
You're absolutely right about that. Great analogy. I love it. And yeah, that's true. And you can monitor yourself, but do it gently. Do it gently. Be empathic with yourself. And another tip that I use is it's not about being approved. It's always about being improved. And again, mindset. If you focus your mindset on, hey, I just want to get better. I just want to do whatever it takes to improve. Then criticism, constructive criticism anyway, doesn't feel bad. It feels like, oh my gosh, this really helped me. I do want to stop saying, I am going to stop looking all around, instead of in the camera. I'm going to do these things because it's going to help me be improved, not approve, just improve. You're going to get better.
I have found, especially the real estate agents and the compliments, that your consistency and that you stayed with it. And there's the people are, if you're online and you're producing materials and content, people are, if they're following you, they're seeing you improve as well. And that's why they're staying with you, because they're seeing you. They are motivated themselves by just seeing you. It's like, seeing someone lose weight. You're like, oh, wow, you look really great. It makes you feel good too, to see that this person, stuck with it and they're feeling better. It makes you feel better. I'm going to finish with these last two questions on here, just so everyone, the services that you provide. So you can brag a little bit about, the different things that you do and some of the stuff you just mentioned. Give us a little bit of a success story of a client you've worked with that your coaching has impacted their professional development.
Ooh, wow. I have so many. I am going to go with Tom. There's a bunch of them. I got a lot of people that I really have enjoyed. Coaching, but
we'll protect
not Tom Reber, but this is a different Tom. His story is a short one where he actually was out. He was an avid biker, and he got into an accident. He kind of rode his bike off of a cliff. And short story, he basically was paralyzed from the chest down. And instead of kind of giving in, between he and his wife, he worked himself back into a position of strength, learned how to get very, very strong and even competitive in using his chair. And now he bikes, but from his wheelchair. So, and I don't know what that's called, but he's a wheelchair racer. But the most important part of this is he also wanted to use his story of adversity to inspire people. And he came to me looking for a coach. And every time I would coach him, it would inspire me too. I would look at Tom, and think about, wow, if he can do it, I can do it. And the things he talked about, the principles that he went through to get back to where he was just such an inspiration to me. And I know that it will be an inspiration to anyone. And I would even highly recommend that maybe after I come, he'll get a chance to come as well and speak. So that's one of many. But I have a lot of people that aren't trying to be professional speakers. In fact, I have more people who are just in the business world that say, I'm great. I know what I know. But I get so nervous when I have to stand in front of people and talk, or if I have to talk to a video camera or whatever. And they have great stories as well. So all of that through the Perseverance Speakers Academy, I do that one-to-one coaching, and it's exciting for me.
Well, I mean, you kind of answered a little bit of the other second half of that question was, what are some of the unique or specific challenges that you have faced in the coaching of a corporate world? What are some common things? I think you mentioned there, obviously, is speaking always a thing, or is there some leadership involved there, connecting with their employees? Sure. What are some of the things that you run across?
Sure. The Perseverance Speakers Academy is one, what would you call it, arm of the business. Another arm of the business does deal with executive coaching as well as middle management training, leadership training overall. I do that play through the FOW, but there is even a sub-arm to that in leadership. More specifically, as I said, I am a certified mediator in conflict resolution and trainer in conflict resolution. So I probably more specifically get people in leadership who are struggling with how do they deal with conflict? How do they have those tough conversations with their employees, their coworkers, even their family members who don't understand their job, whatever. So that specific area of leadership, there's a course called Classes for Clashes. I thought it was kind of witty. Classes for Clashes. Right, exactly. So I had that going as well. And so I do have quite a few clients that come to me looking to improve the way they handle conflict resolution and how they lead through adversity.
So you are doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, but you also or, corporations are bringing you in also to, like, to train those middle managers or whatever it is, add to their continuing ed.
Correct. And team building overall, right? Because it's not, that's the problem is we put so much emphasis on leadership, but what I teach is empathic leadership. And when you discover how to lead empathically, you'll always learn that leadership is really a lot more affiliative than you realize. Like you really are tapping into what do your people need, not what do I need them to do. Again, it's a different mindset. What do my people need to be great? Not just what do I need them to do. And when you start leading from that perspective first of who are they and what are their strengths and what are their skill sets and what are their pain points? What do they need? When you start leading that way, then you'll watch a lot of things improve greatly in terms of the way you manage people, because you will have what you need in terms of making that emotional connection that drives people to do what they do.
Well, it's interesting. You say that some of the top brokers that I've had on, one particularly has really made it a passion. Others are doing it, but really finding to get the most out of their real estate agents. They're not employees. They come there by choice because they're going to follow that particular broker for whatever reasons they may be. But the top ones are really digging deep into what makes that real estate agent tick. And obviously the biggest thing we do as loan officers and real estate agents is prospecting. What is their favorite way to prospect? What makes them feel, what do they like to do? And obviously what produces for them, and finding that niche, and then use Grant Cardone's thing, 10x it.
Yes.
Versus
now
saying,
that's
you're going to come here and we're going to do cold calling. Okay, well, I might be really good at knocking on doors. It might be my success. I hate cold calling, but we're going to, some of them are still into the old school method. Like, oh, this is the way we did it 20 years ago. You're going to cold call.
Sure.
Well, that doesn't work for everybody, and they wash out versus finding that.
Yeah, we have something called caller ID that makes cold calling just not quite as effective as it once was. Because I know if I don't recognize the number, I'm not answering it because I already know someone's trying to sell me something.
I don't know how many spam calls I've already gotten. I don't know what's going on. They're better now. They say this possible spam. Click.
Yeah, now it says that. It even tells you that now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're too smart for that now.
But I really appreciate, Vera. Did you want to add, to add anything on here? And obviously, I'm going to take some short clips out of this and promote it over the next week, the show. It'll go out on the audio world on Tuesday, which will be the 17th, if I'm correct.
Okay.
So we'll go out on Apple on the 17th. Obviously, it's already out on Facebook and YouTube to share around. But I'm going to pull out some really good clips from this as well, because I think all the people that I talk to, everything, the mission of my podcast, I didn't really share that with you. When I had the real estate agents on, the top agents or even top vendors, I've had some loan officers, but I'm a loan officer, so I don't invite too many of those. But the other support services of our industry is I want to inspire, hopefully that, if there's an agent out there who's new or, someone thinking about getting in the business, someone who's maybe stuck, right? I'm sure you run into a lot of people like that. They hit a lid. They don't know where, that they're going to get your message, some things that you've said here today. Maybe they'll call you, obviously. I'm going to send you a link out so you can put all your social media links and contact information on. So when the show notes go out for the podcast, it'll be there. And from that standpoint, but inspire is really just like yourself. You inspire others and hopefully share some knowledge, share some experience that hopefully they take and, moves them to another level.
Yeah. The biggest thing is, as you've already touched on, where to find me. I would say go to the website, verasvoiceworks.com, or you could also, if you're just interested in coaching and speaking, you can go to perseverancespeak.com. Perseverance, I didn't think about how tricky that was to spell, but it's a challenge. I'm a coach. I'll challenge you. Perseverancespeak.com. Either one will get you to me. And as you said, I'm on social media. And then there's the main thing to kind of keep in mind, faith, focus, fortitude. There's no magic secret to success. It's believing that you can do it, faith, believing that you are brought here for a reason to do something to serve somebody, also faith, your focus. It's easy to get distracted in today's world, right? Like I've tried a million businesses and failed, right? Because there was one particular one, speaking and training, that I was supposed to stay focused on. So don't get too scattered. Try different things, but don't get too scattered. Stay focused. And then the fortitude, that's the play through the foul part. Understand that fouls will happen. It's how you play through them, how you overcome them, that determines whether you're going to win the game. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about winning. So
I'm naming the podcast. The podcast title will be Faith Focused Fortitude.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. Love it.
I appreciate you coming on here. Let me just get my camera back here to you and then me. Yeah, definitely. Look forward to meeting you on the 19th. I might be a couple minutes late, but I assume they're going to serve lunch first. So I got another training that goes to almost start time, and I'll get there. But
all right, Tracy, this is awesome. Thank you for doing this. I look forward. Yeah, send me the link and let me know how I can get others to listen in as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Have a great day.